It's been a long life. I was born in 1936 in Munich, Germany, and this was the beginning of the Second World War. After the war, we moved to Stuttgart and then to Hamburg, to Hanover. So I was traveling around because my father was a journalist and he worked for different newspapers. Then when I was still in school, my grandfather gave me a camera, a very old traditional camera which has this harmonica and a ground glass, and it used glass plates. And I was very fascinated by that machine. And I used it. I tried to take pictures of my friends, my family, but it was all on glass plates. And I had my little darkroom in our kitchen at night, and I developed my glass plates. And I won a prize in a youth contest, and I got a 35mm camera with film. So this was a new step in my life. I'm Thomas Hoepker.
An entire career devoted to groundbreaking photojournalism and major international magazines. A balancing act between the demands of the press and his own desires to express a definitive style and taste in images. Thomas Hoepker, a magnum photographer since 1989, has succeeded in a very personal way in recounting events, stories, and personalities that have made their mark on the international scene from the 1950s to today. As many like to describe him, he is a photographer of vivid colors and dreamy rich tones. Or, as he considers himself, a photojournalist simply searching for everyday situations.
Well, a photojournalist is someone who works for a newspaper, mainly, because those are the users of photography. And that's what I did later. So in these golden days, which are over now, photographers became hired by a magazine. They were staffers. They worked for that specific magazine. I started out with a magazine called Münchner Illustrierte. And then another magazine came up called Crystal. And that was an interesting type of magazine because they used long stories, very large picture layouts of many, many pictures.
Like many of his contemporaries, other magnum photographers, Thomas Hoepker narrates distant and inaccessible stories. His shots are accompanied by the articles of journalists traveling with him and offered glimpses of the world of distant lands, often unknown to his audience. And so Hoepker's journey begins, one that will take him across and beyond borders, from Ethiopia to Peru, up to the USA, a journey of exploration and discovery.
Our friends were journalists. I visited my father in his office. I smelled the ink, the printer's ink. So eventually, after I had finished school, I thought I would like to become a photojournalist, a photographer. My father, as all fathers, said, no, this is not a serious business, and you should do something. You have to go to university. And eventually, I went to university, and I studied history of art history. I traveled to Italy a lot because there was art I wanted to see. I took pictures and I went to museums, but after a while I discovered that in the museums I was more fascinated with the people looking at the pictures as the pictures themselves. So I combined a little bit my love for art and my love for photography.
The year is 1960. At the Rome Olympics, a new boxing star is born. He is a young black man from Kentucky, and his name is Cassius Clay. Only 6 years after that gold medal, his face begins to appear on magazine covers all over the world.
Cassius Clay of Chicago challenges Gary Joyce, and Joyce is in trouble from the first round on.
He's a new boxing champion who floats like a butterfly, stings like a bee. He is acclaimed for his nimbleness and a technique that makes him unique and unbeatable. But most of all, he is known for his indomitable character. In 1964, he wins the World Championship title for the first time, beating boxing big bad guy, the jailbird, Sonny Liston, surprising both reporters and the public, who had predicted Clay would go down. But it's the second match fought by the same champs a year later that goes down in history. Cassius Clay has now a new name, Muhammad Ali. He has converted to Islam and declares that he's guided by a divine force. He knocks Liston out just 1 minute into the first round with an apparently innocuous blow. The year is 1966, and the 22-year-old Muhammad Ali is already an absolute champion. Impetuous, provocative, always pushing life to the limit, he embodies the aspirations and the tensions of 1960s America.
Stern magazine said, go and photograph this interesting guy. He seems to be a little strange, but very, very interesting. And my wife and I, Eva Müller, we moved to Chicago to meet the champ. And I had no idea about boxing. I'd never photographed a boxing match, and I didn't know about the sport. But we were both fascinated by this personality. The situation was difficult because he had just converted to Islam. And part of it is that he shouldn't talk to a strange woman. So here I was with my wife and the boxer who didn't really want to have a conversation with my wife. So we just followed him. And we just followed him around when he went to the gym in the morning and was boxing there, and he met friends, and he went to a deli for lunch. After a while, we became part of the furniture, so he didn't notice us anymore. We were simply there. Impossible today. I think it was Henri Cartier-Bresson who said, the best thing is you are the fly on the wall. You see everything with your big eyes all over, but you are not noticed by the other people. And that was the situation with Ali. After a week or so, we simply were there and watched him.
Thomas Hoepker and Eva Wynne Möller follow Ali for weeks on end, going back and forth between his private and public life. They document and record his habits, moods, and passions. The result is an authentic, exclusive, and extremely private portrait, recounting the life of a young man already an icon of his time, who excited, scandalized, and rejected any stereotype. He was totally aware of his impact on the press, but above all, on the people who shared his humble origins.
Occasionally, when he went out in his car, we followed him, we stayed in the car, and he drove around town. He had mood swings, he could come one morning and was in a bad mood and wouldn't like to talk, and so we just stayed behind, and didn't bother him. On other days, he was in a good mood and said, let's come, go along with me and I'll show you Chicago. And then there was this situation when we drove in his very nice limousine across a bridge over the Chicago River. And I said, oh, that's a nice view, can we get out? And we got out of the car. Then there was this railing of the bridge, and I said, could you get up on that railing so I can photograph you in front of the skyline? And he got up, and he was standing there and said, I'm beautiful, and he took his jacket off. And he was standing there like this, and I said, jump. And he jumped towards me, towards the camera, and I had just one chance, one click. And that was it. And it's one of the most prominent pictures of Ali flying through the air in front of Chicago.
Thomas Hoepker's contact sheets encapsulate the photographer's vision in his attempt to capture the essential aspects of the champion's life with exacting authenticity. The differing shades of Muhammad Ali's life, from strength to vulnerability, emerge from each shot. But these snapshots also represent the photographer's artistic unconscious. Henri Cartier-Bresson, co-founder of Magnum Photo, never liked to share his contact sheets.
Henri said the wonderful, I don't want people to look at my contact sheets. It's like they're watching me making pee-pee. And he was kind of, he had assumed a status of grandeur. And I think from that point on, he didn't want to know people that he also took mediocre pictures, which I don't share. I think it's the process. You know, you go into the street and you take a picture and hope it is something, but then you're not satisfied, but you click and take it. Not every shot that you take is good, you know. Maybe 1%, maybe 5% of the pictures ever will see the light of day after you shot them.
Muhammad Ali fights in the ring as he does in life. Fame, wealth, and medals are his prize. But Ali isn't just a boxing champ. He's Black America's new defender. His mentor is Malcolm X, American Muslim activist, who guides him in his battle against social injustice. He rails against U.S. attacks in Vietnam. He refuses to enroll in the military and pays the price when he gives up his world championship title.
My intention is to box to win a clean fight. But in war, the intention is to kill, and continue killing innocent people. That's what the verse is in war.
Ali's ascent coincides with the revolt on the part of the blacks excluded from public life at the time, alienated and left alone in urban decay, in total submission to whites. Ali, with his biting tongue, defiant expression, and, above all, his fists, begins giving a voice to those whose mouths had long been kept shut, to the hidden faces, and to the oppressed. He keeps up his battle, the prophetic sense of destiny, something no one else had ever done before in the boxing world.
He was kind of bragging all the time, you know. It's almost like he was encouraging himself to be courageous. He was always talking how wonderful he is and how pretty he was. He looked great, you know, and he did. And everybody was fascinated because he had one title after the other. And he was a great manifestation of himself. He made himself into somebody who is not just a wonderful athlete and a boxer, but a political figure also. And that became a very important aspect of his career. And he was not only the fantastic boxer, he became a politician in a way, because he was fighting his own government in their policies about Vietnam, about the war, and etc.
From the photos enclosed in the contact sheets, Muhammad Ali seems to reincarnate the passions and hopes of his country in search of an identity. This was not the first time Hoepker told American stories. In a 1963 reportage, he translated the routine of daily life into unique images full of depth and contrast. The shots remind us of the scenes found in Edward Hoepker's paintings, with their mixes of indistinguishable faces and settings. Solitude, extravagance, and patriotism are revealed in every facial expression.
So for the journalism, of course, it is something that describes a situation, a real situation, but it's also, in my case, very much so that I interpret. I have an opinion about what I see, hopefully. And hopefully this opinion comes across in the picture. So if I find something very beautiful and very wonderful, the picture should reflect this. But if I see events which are horrible or depressing or ironically felt had some irony in them, I interpreted my world. So it's not certainly a very objective way to approach this. It was a more an artist's way somehow.
I am the greatest.
The bell comes and he was boxing and then pause and then he goes boxing again. And in one of these brief intervals, I think it's just a minute or so, he saw me sitting there in the darkness outside of the ring, a very shabby gym. And he hadn't seen me for a few days and he just came up and to me, hi. And then he did this trademark thing with his fist. And I had time only to get 3 frames, cluck, 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 and that was it. And then he went again back to his training position and was bouncing the heavy bag. So this was a total surprising, and when I look at the contact sheet, there is only one sharp picture. The other ones are dark and not good, and the only one was this one with the fist. And I just had a moment to focus my Leica on that fist. One morning we drove around in his limousine, and after a while he stopped at a bakery in the south side of Chicago. And he went in and we were waiting for him, and he came out with a paper bag and said, I bought some donuts. And he was eating the donuts. And okay, he even gave us one. And he drove a while. We looked at other places in the south side. And suddenly he came by that same bakery again and said, hey, listen, I need more donuts. So he got out, come back with his donuts. Now, at the third time, I became suspicious and I went, what's going on here? And I went with him into the bakery. And then I found out he wasn't so much interested in the donuts, he was interested in the baker's daughter, who was a very, very pretty girl. And he was flirting with her, and she was flirting with him, and of course she knew who he was, and it was a wonderful situation. So I got some very nice pictures of the two. And only years later, I found out that this girl from the bakery had become his third wife, Belinda. Belinda, very beautiful, and he had, I think they had 3 children together. So I was there when they met for the first time and fell in love.
Curiosity and the excitement of discovering hidden worlds lead Thomas Hoepker to further travel, while still embracing new challenges, such as becoming artistic director of the New York edition of Geo and the German magazine Stern. But he will never abandon his Germany for good, and will return to describe it through the eyes of someone who knows his land well and understands its deepest soul. His photo reportage on life on the other side of the wall will provide a full portrait of a people unknown to the rest of the world.
On 9/11, I was in my apartment in Manhattan, and I heard the news over the radio and television. And finally, I took out the car, and I was driving over this bridge to get to Queens. Now we're on the same bridge. And from Queens, I went to Brooklyn on the other side of New York. And I saw the black cloud coming out of lower New York. And I knew, and I heard on the radio what was happening. And I was totally confused, and I didn't really know what was going on. And at the end, I ended up in a little place very close to the river, and I had the view of Lower Manhattan. And suddenly in the front, I saw a scene of some young people sitting in the sunshine, and it looked very peaceful, you know, and they were talking, and they're looking my way, so I could photograph them. And I took 3 shots of this scene, and actually I forgot about it because I felt it was not depicting the horror and the scare and the incredible confusion of the moment. But strangely enough, there was this curator from my museum in Munich who came to visit, and he looked at my photographs of 9/11, and he picked this one shot and said, listen, this is incredible, the contrast between the peaceful people in the sunshine and the burning big city behind. And it became kind of a symbol of a peaceful situation suddenly shattered by this horrific event.
Thomas Hoepker and Ali met on 2 more occasions. In 1970, the champ is at the peak of his strength, cocky as always and ready for new challenges. Like the fight of the century with Joe Frazier, Smoking Joe. His hook knocks Ali out, and he beats him in the last round. But Ali doesn't give up, and in 1974 decides to face George Foreman, Big George, in a match that has gone down in history as the Rumble in the Jungle in Kinshasa, Zaire. Ali uses his head, staying on the defensive against the ropes, and simply protecting himself from Foreman's blows. This tires Foreman out, enabling Ali to counterattack suddenly with a decisive hook in the 5th round. Big George was down. But it was once again with Frazier that he fought a fight to the finish for the title of world champion in the match known as the Thrilla in Manila. In the 15th round, both champs were exhausted, but it was Smoking Joe, totally spent, face swollen and bruised, who finally threw in the towel. Ali is by now a legend, and the portrait that represents him more than any other is the iconic photo snapped just 10 years earlier, when Thomas Hoepker captured Ali's fist thrust out from the shadows of the ring.
I was with a Leica with a wide-angle lens, and I Tri-X film, but the lighting was terrible. I went to the darkroom and made prints and said, okay, that's fine. I saw the most important instrument of his trade, his fist, you know? And so the fist is bigger than the head. It's been a very important picture in my career. I think the fame of the picture is done by other people, by people who look at it and like it, and so suddenly I don't know, it must have a certain impact on people, so it's that they immediately feel there is something. It also happens that later, after I had looked through my negatives or my color slides, and I rediscover another print at a later date and suddenly think, well, it's not so bad. So life is a surprise because I have to walk a lot, you know. It's you take pictures by walking the street. I'm a street walker, you know, so. And New York is a wonderful subject, and I walk through the streets and suddenly there is something. So it's a wonderful discovery if you find a good picture. If I'm just walking the streets of New York, I might have only one camera with a zoom lens, and I can cover 90% of what's happening. And then by chance, you see something that might be something. And you have to grab the chance and stay with it, and eventually you get a good picture.